Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to make a really fun slider card using the brand new Submarine Cubbies Stamp and Die set from Art Impressions. And we'll also be creating some beautiful backgrounds using our Distress Oxide sprays. So let's go ahead and get started. So for paper today, I'll be using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock. And we're going to cut two pieces at 3.5 by 8.5. And then we also are going to create a slimline card. So we want this piece to be 8.5 by 7 inches, and we'll score that at the 3.5-inch mark. I'm just going to go ahead and press this out with my bone folder. So this will be a standard slimline card, which will measure 3.5 by 8.5. So let's grab those two panels. And then I'm using my Distress Oxide sprays. I'll be using Faded Jeans, Cracked Pistachio, and Peacock Feathers to start off here. So the first thing we'll do is grab the Distress sprayer. This just has water in it, and I'm going to add some water to these two panels. Now you do want to shake your Distress Oxide inks really well, and then I'm going to just start with my lightest color here. We're going to be adding some more water to these later on, so for now I'm just going to lay down a base color here. I'm adding the medium tone, and then I'll come in with a little bit of the darker shade here. Now what I want to do is try to get these colors to blend together a little bit. So first I'm going to add a little bit of the Mermaid Lagoon as well. I did decide to add that one additional color here. And then I'll start spritzing this with water, and I really want to get these nice and wet. I want these colors to blend together. Now you don't have to do this if you don't want to. You could just leave it the way it is when you spray it right out of the bottles. But I did want to get that nice blending. I want to give it the look of water. So I'm going to spritz that really well. And then I thought that got a little light, so I'm just going to add a little bit more of that darker shade. And now I've cleaned off my craft mat, and I'm going to go ahead and heat set these. But again, if you didn't like this, you could add more color, more water, and then more color. So you can do this as many times as you like. I'm spritzing these again with a little bit of water just to create the look of some spatters or bubbles in the water. And I'm just patting it off with a dry paper towel. And that'll give us just a little bit more texture to the water here. So I'm going to clean off my distress sprayers. You do want to take a second or two just to clean the nozzles on these before you put them away. Then I'll place something heavy on those two panels and set those aside to dry. Now I've got my Submarine Cubbies Stamp and Die set, and this is a brand new set from Art Impressions, and I've gone ahead and stamped quite a few of the images. Now with dark pink and gray, I'm going to color in this little submarine. And I am using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock to do my coloring. And I did stamp these images with the VersaFine Onyx Black Permanent dye ink. So I'm going to use that dark pink and just kind of pull that up towards the top of my submarine. And I am using the blender pen to do that. And these are the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens. So let me tell you a little bit more about this set while you watch the coloring here. This set includes 12 images, and you have 8 undersea creatures. And there's an octopus, a dolphin, a turtle, a seahorse, a lobster, a crab, 2 fish, a starfish, a shell, and then there's also bubbles included, which is really kind of cute if you want to add that bubbly effect. And there's lots of little sentiments that coordinate really well with this. We're going to use the one that says swimming by to say hi today. And there's also let the sea set you free, I love you deeper than the ocean, and happy birthday, let's celebrate. And so again, there are coordinating dies for all of these, and I'll be showing you those here in a minute. So for here, you can see what I'm doing is I'm grabbing some of that color from the bottom of the submarine and moving it over to the other side. I just had a little excess there, so I decided not to have it go to waste, so I'm just using it over on the other side of the submarine. You could just scribble it onto your scrap paper if you have too much here, but I thought I needed a little more color on that other side. Now what's fun about this die set is it will cut out those little windows on the submarine, and I really didn't realize that when I was coloring it in, so you will see that I put a little bit of a tint in those windows, but you don't need to do that because again those little windows are going to get die cut. So here I'm just going to add the gray to some of the trim work on our little submarine. So again, this is a fun set. I think you can use this set for lots of different things. With all the little fish and the shells and everything, you'll be putting a lot of items together here for other projects. And I also wanted to tell you that this is part of the Critter Cubbies collection. And there's another brand new one as well. It's called the Hen House Cubbies. And that set has the hen house with the doors and windows open on the hen house. And there's some chickens, a weather vane, a wooden sign, and there's some cute little chicks and some really cute sentiments with that one as well. So check that out as well. That is again part of this brand new release. And these are just so much fun to play with, and I also think they're really versatile for lots of other projects as well. And I love anything to do with the ocean, water. That's probably one of my favorite things. So I really had a great time with this set. So once this is all colored in, again, I'm going to add a little bit of shading around those windows down here at the bottom. And I did that for all three of those windows. So now with my orange and yellow, I'm going to color in the little fish. And I'm starting off with that yellow and adding a little bit of that orange, and I'll just kind of blend that in, keep the center the lightest there. And I'll do the same thing for that other little fish as well. And then for the little crab, I'm using the wine red. And I'll just kind of apply that color sort of towards the bottom and pull it up towards the top. And for a little bit more shadowing, I'm going back to that same color and just adding a little bit more here at the bottom. Now I'll use yellow, olive green, and deep green to color in this most adorable little turtle here. So again, I'm just going to kind of add some shadowing here and there. And I'll add a little bit of the darker color in kind of in between the little pieces on the top of the shell there. And some yellow for highlighting. And then I'll just blend those together. Now with sugared almond pink, I'm going to do the little seahorse. And again, I'm just using that same color to add a little bit of a shadow. And then I did decide to come in with the light gray just to give a little bit more of a shadow here. Now with the purple, I'm going to do the little octopus. And this is one of those colors where a little bit of it goes a long way. You just need a little dab of it, and it really does stretch pretty far. So you do want to be careful with this color here. And there you can see I'm just removing some color. I'm just grabbing it with my blender pen and scribbling it onto some scrap paper. Now with the light gray and the sugared almond pink, I'm just going to quickly color in these the little starfish and that little shell as well. So now we have all of our little pieces colored in. Now I've got a piece of paper that measures 8.5 inches long, and I'm just going to tear this, maybe at about 3/4 of an inch. It'll be wider in some places, and you want to tear back and forth, so away from you and towards you. And that'll give you a really nice feathered look on the top of this paper. I'm using Vintage Photo and Walnut Stain. Again, these are the Distress Oxide inks. And I'm going to just start with my lighter color. And I do want to add water again, so I'm going to give that a quick spritz as well, just to give it so that these colors will blend together well. Then I'm coming in with my darker color here. And then I'll go back with that water and give this a good spritz. And this is going to look really, really cool. It really does look like the wet sand at the bottom of the ocean. I'm just going to kind of let those colors blend together a little bit. I cleaned off my craft mat and I'm heat setting this as well. Now I've got some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock and we're going to be stamping that little border stamp there. So I'm placing that in my mini Misty. And these stamps are from Art Impressions, and this is from the Greenery Invites stamp set, number 5266. So I'm just going to stamp this one time, again using my VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And then I didn't include the coloring in this, but I went back to those greens that we used before, and I'm just going to color those in, just a variety of green colors. And I'll go ahead and cut that out with my detail scissors, and I'm leaving a little bit of a border all the way around. Now for my sentiment, this says swimming by to say hi. I used that little banner die there, and I cut off the left side of it, so I just want the sentiment and that little V in the banner on the right hand side. And this is from the Tag Stitch Die Set, number 5132. Again from Art Impressions. Now let's go ahead and create our slider. So we're going to be using this Lawn Fawn Slide On Over die to create the slider mechanism here. So I just want to try to figure out where I need to position this die. And I want it to be just above the sand at the bottom of the ocean a little bit. And then I want to center it on my card. So I'm measuring in up to 4¼ inches, which is the center. And then I also want to mark the center on my little slider mechanism as well. So I'm going to mark that. And then I'll know that it's centered on the card. So I'm going to line it up with that pencil mark. And then I also want to make sure that it's nice and straight so that my submarine slides straight across. And here again, I'm just checking to make sure everything's going to line up properly. So I've got my T ruler. I'm going to position that. And again, just making sure I line up that die nice and straight. And I'm, again, just checking to make sure it's centered. So now I can go ahead and tape that down with a little bit of purple tape. And I'll run that through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. So that's going to create the little slot that we need. Now you could keep this little piece here. If you only created one panel, you can use that little piece there in your background, but we created a second panel, so we're going to use that as our backing for this little slot. So now I'm taking some of that ink, the Mermaid Lagoon, and I'm just going to go right around those edges just to take away that white edge. Now I've got my coordinating dies. Again, they come with the set, and I'm going to go ahead and tape those down with some purple tape, and I'll run those through the die cutting machine as well. And you can see it cut out all those little windows in my submarine. So now, using my Lawn Fawn Sparkle cardstock from the spring collection, I'm going to use this pretty yellow color. And I'm going to put that behind the submarine, basically to fill in the windows with this pretty sparkly paper. So I'm going to trace this submarine all the way around with a pencil, and then I'll just come in and trim that out. I'm just going right on the inside of those lines, so it'll fit right behind the submarine there. That's also going to thicken up this submarine a little bit too, so that when it's on the slider mechanism, it'll be a little bit more sturdy. So now I'm going to grab some of my Nouveau Deluxe adhesive, and I'll place plenty of that all around the back here and glue these two together. Now let's set that aside to dry. Now I've got my two panels, and my submarine is going to slide right along that little area, that opening there. So you can either double up your Scotch photo mounting tape, or I'm going to use these Kaiser scrapbook mounting foam circles. And they're just a little bit thicker than if you double up your tape. So I wanted to get this raised up nice so that I have plenty of room for my mechanism. So I'm going to place plenty of these little foam dots all the way around this panel, but I want to make sure they don't get in the way of my mechanism. So I'm going to grab the penny that we'll be using for our slider and just make sure it has plenty of room to move back and forth. Now I started off with one penny here, but I realized I really need two because this submarine is quite large and I don't want it to flop around on the card. So I'm just cutting some of the edge of that foam tape just so it's nice and thick. I'll remove the backing, and then I'm going to put a little bit of the anti-static powder tool right along the edges of that tape so it doesn't stick to my the little slot opening there. And so now you can see I've got two of these. So I did the same thing for that other penny as well. And again, because this submarine is so long, I wanted to make sure it was nice and stable. So those two pennies will slide back and forth. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of that anti-static powder all around that opening just to make sure everything slides nice and easy. And again, that's the EK Success Anti-Static Powder Tool. So now you can see that when it slides back, you can see that pretty blue color behind there. So now I've removed the backing from all of those little foam circles, and I'm going to attach these two together. And I'm just going to take a little time here to make sure I line these up. And now you can see when that slides, you can see the pretty blue color right through that slot opening as well. So now I've got the sand and some of the little greenery for the bottom of the ocean. And what I want to do is make sure they don't get in the way of this little mechanism. So although I'm going to put these behind that submarine, I want to make sure I glue them down nice and flat. I don't want anything to get in the way there. So I'm going to use plenty of my adhesive on these little pieces here. So I'm going to make sure I glue that down nice and flat. And then for the greenery, again, I'm going to make sure I have plenty of glue right up to the edges there. And I'll just spread it around with my finger a little bit as well, just to make sure I have it right to the ends. Then I can go ahead and press that in place, just checking to make sure I have it at the right height. So now that'll lay nice and flat and it won't interfere with the little submarine at all. So I can go ahead and glue the sand down here, just lining it up down at the bottom of this panel. Now I'm going to add my sentiment up towards the upper left-hand side of the card. And I'll go ahead and add all of my other little sea critters here. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue these down. Now we can attach this entire panel to the front of our card. So we've got this standard slimline card which measures 3.5 by 8.5. And I'm using my ATG 700 permanent tape dispenser to glue these together. And this is a really strong double stick tape. So now I'll give you a closer look at the card. And you can see how pretty that background is, that water, and it's so easy to do. These distress oxides are really fun. And I love these new images from Art Impressions. So don't forget to check out the other new set as well. And I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to visit me at pinkwhisperdesigns.com. As always, thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.